Well, welcome everyone. As I already mentioned, my name is Zach Morris. I'm the Vice President of the Conservation Federation. Thanks for being here for our last installment in our Hunting Basics web series. We've got a great speaker tonight, Josh Marshall with Missouri Pheasants and Quail Forever. Before we jump into the presentation, I am going to go over our housekeeping and our virtual event policy. And I will put a link to that policy in the chat for folks that want to review that in full. These rules will be used to manage virtual meetings of the Conservation Federation of Missouri, ensuring everyone has a chance to provide input and be received welcomingly into an inclusive environment. CFM is committed to providing a safe, productive, and welcoming environment for all meeting participants. We have a zero tolerance policy for any form of discrimination or harassment by participants, speakers, or staff at our meetings. Our full virtual event policy can be found on the CFM website. I will put a link to that in chat. To make a comment or ask a question, type it into the chat. We will likely save questions for the end and have a little bit of opportunity to interact with the speaker as we go. But we do like people to either put their name in chat so that we know to call on you for a question, or drop your question in chat and the speaker can answer that, and you can follow up with your microphone if you'd like to. This session is being recorded, and so we ask folks to keep your cameras turned off until the recording is done. That way it's the recording comes out cleaner and we can share that on our YouTube channel. But the Q&A at the end will be reserved for folks that are able to participate in person. So we're glad you could be here. With that, I will introduce Josh. Josh is a farm bill biologist with Missouri Pheasants and Quail Forever, somewhere in Northwest Missouri. I'll let him fill you in on the specifics of that. And Josh is going to go over fall upland hunting, which includes quail, pheasants, rabbits, as well as turkeys. And all of that opens up on October 1st. So thank you, Josh, very much for being here, and take it away.
Hey, thanks, Zach. Thanks for having me. And thanks to CFM for putting on these webinars. Definitely a great resource, and looking forward to being able to talk to you all tonight about a little bit of fall upland and fall turkey hunting. So like Zach said, I'm Josh Marshall. I'm a farm bill wildlife biologist in kind of north central Missouri. If you look at the MDC regions, I have two counties, Grundy and Mercer in the northwest corner, and then I have two counties, Sullivan and Putnam in the northeast corner. So right smack dab in the middle of the state. Been in this position for 3 years, really enjoy it. I get to work with a lot of landowners, helping advise and assist them on their conservation plans as they try to work on increasing wildlife on their properties. And so just a great position, great time to get out, work with landowners and help them achieve those goals. So I'll go ahead and share my screen. I have a PowerPoint tonight for us as we go over the Learn to Hunt basics. Okay. I think you can see my screen. So yeah, as I said, we're going to talk about Learn to Hunt, mainly looking at quail, pheasants, turkeys, and we'll include some other wildlife in there as well. So start, and this will probably be the bulk of the presentation, talking about quail and pheasant hunting, working with quail and pheasants forever. It is a passion of mine. So I grew up in bird hunting. My first dog was an English setter and went bird hunting with him quite a bit. My dad trained him. And then when he got too old to hunt and we retired him, my second dog was a German short-haired pointer, took me through my high school years and spent a lot of time, a lot of evenings and afternoons after school, hunting birds. Do quite a bit of deer hunting and turkey hunting as well. So just like to be out in the woods, like to be outdoors. It's definitely a family passion. All my family likes to hunt. And then my grandpa especially was a big bird hunter. I didn't get into deer hunting as much as we have, but bird hunting was his passion. So I love carrying that tradition down with me. So really there's two primary ways when you're looking at bird hunting in Missouri. So I said quail and pheasant. We do have both of those in Missouri. You'll usually find pheasants kind of on the north part of Missouri, they say I-70, and even the further north you go, like Highway 36, increases your chances of running into pheasants. Quail run the whole gamut of the state, so you have a good chance of hunting all of those. And so there's two primary ways to pursue these. The first and probably the most common way, which I've already referenced, is with a bird dog. Nothing better than being behind a good bird dog, working with them. If you're new to quail and pheasant hunting, how you work with a bird dog is you start downwind, you work into the wind, running draws, running areas that you know or think the quail are going to be in, and let the dog use its awesome nose, eyes to find those birds. When it finds the bird, it goes on point, walks on point, which you can see here in this picture. This is a German short-haired Annie. It isn't my dog. It's one of our co-workers and friends' dogs. And so it's on point. Once it goes on point, you can move in and what we call bust the covey, make them fly, or bust the pheasant, make it fly, and then shoot at it. The dog does a lot of the heavy lifting when you have the dog. Because they're going through the brambles, they're searching for that quail, and you're really working with that dog to try to get guided in the right direction of where you think the quail are, but then working with that dog that once it goes on point, you can go after the birds. So this is a German short-haired pointer. There are other birds that are flushers, so they don't go on point quite as hard or sting on point as long, and they move in and actually flush the birds. Things like Cocker Spaniels, Brittany's, they all are flushers that more work to flush the birds themselves. Another benefit of having a dog is when you do down a bird, the dog can retrieve it. Again, it can use that nose, its eyes, ears. It can find that bird, makes it easier to retrieve. But that isn't the only way to hunt. You can hunt with a group of friends and hunt without a dog. I said dog has some benefits, but you can definitely have a good time just out there, walking a farm, walking a piece of property, looking for those birds with friends and getting out in the outdoors. Both options, whichever way you want to go, does require some pre-work, and that's kind of what we'll cover as we go on. There's things that you can do ahead of time and before the hunt that's really going to benefit your ability to find those birds and have a successful hunt. But both options can be successful. So that picture is a bird, and that bird's special to me for a couple reasons. One, it's the first one that I got without a dog. So we don't have a dog anymore in my family, and not in a position to currently have one. And so I went out in late November, just myself, shotgun, and busted through some brambles and was able to run into a covey, and it was on our family farm. So it's the first bird I harvested off our family farm. When we were growing up, we ran cattle, so we didn't have a lot of quail on the farm, but we hunted on neighbors and friends' property. So to get that first bird on the farm was pretty special and just an awesome hunt for sure. So I mentioned doing some pre-work for the birds. That has to do mainly with scouting for birds. And there's a lot of way to scout for birds. You're going to want to look for quality habitat. So when I was young, growing up, and even more so in the early 80s and 70s, the heyday of quail and pheasant hunting here in Missouri, if you went to really any crop field that had a brushy draw or ditch that ran through it, anything that had a kind of a grassy waterway in combination with that crop field, you had a pretty good chance of finding birds. Because of new, modern, more cleaning farming practices, and just we farm differently than we did back then, and things are done differently. You don't have as much chance of finding birds just going off that method. One thing you can look for is native grasses and forb plantings. Plantings such as pollinator plots, buffer strips, monarch plantings, or even CRP grasslands. All these provide quality habitat for quail. It provides quality habitat because, like pollinator plots and monarch plantings, they have a lot of native forbs or native broadleaf plants, not just grasses. And that's really going to key in and bring in these upland birds, because in the fall and winter time, the main thing the upland birds are looking for is food. They need food to pack on weight before winter, and then food to keep themselves warm and not starve during the winter. And so these broadleafs, wildflowers, forbs, whatever you want to call them, they have nice flowers in the summer, spring, and fall time, but then they go to seed. And that seed is a high quality, high nutrient, lots of fat, lots of protein that's going to feed these birds and get them through the winter. A lot of your buffer strips along crop fields, those buffer strips provide shelter, they provide native forbs, and then you also have that leftover grain that's fallen off the grain wagon, that's come out of the combine, not completely cleaned, and so that's giving them more food. And that's why those buffer strips are beneficial. And then CRP grasslands, whether they're native or not, the grasses still grow up with some native forbs that provide good food, and then they provide also shelter in some of those grasses. A note about that though, a thick, heavy, even native grass planting isn't great for quail. It sometimes can get too thick for them to work their way through, but pheasants can use grassier and heavier grass areas than quail can. So just something to kind of keep in mind. Something else, another type of habitat you want to look at is what we call scrub habitat, or that shrubby habitat that's on the edges of fields, that kind of grows up in places where you can't quite get with a brush hog or something. And so there's really short trees. In the 80s and 70s, you know, they always wanted to hunt hedgerows because hedge trees were short, they were scrubby, they hadn't grown very tall, and they provided that shrubby cover that the quail needed. And so that's why hedgerows and old fences provided really good habitat for quail. So you can still look for old fence lines like that, those short scrubby trees. You can look, as in that picture that just came up, that's what we call edge feathering. It's where you take some of those smaller trees, some of those less desirable trees, and you cut them down and loosely stack them to give quail shelter. We call that edge feathering. Blackberry brambles, thick, growed up blackberry brambles are a good place to look for quail. And then, of course, shrub thickets. You can see up there some dogwoods. If you were to look, I actually just took that picture a couple days ago in a CRP field. And if you were to look inside that shrub thicket, you would see that it's almost all bare ground. And it's got a perfect canopy over the top that's going to protect those birds from any predators, from predators finding them. Predators won't be able to get in there as easily. And then when the snow comes, it's going to break up that snow and give them shelter from the snow. This is really important for quail survival through the winter. They need these, what we call escape cover, these shrubby escape covers. And then when they are in coordination with like a pollinator plot or monarch planting, it gives them food. So in the wintertime, when the winter's really heavy, the quail aren't going to go usually more than 70 feet from some type of brushy escape cover. And so that's a good source to look for them. And then that's a good thing to plant to help their survival later on. So another thing you can do if you're scouting for birds, you got the native grasses, you've got shrubby cover. You can also look for standing grain food plots. Standing grain food plots are looking at like milo and millet. Those are very common. That's what's in these pictures. It's got some German millet, and you can see the darker red heads maybe. That's the milo or the sorghum, if you want to call it. Corn, standing corn is good for the birds. Soybeans, if they're still standing. And then even leftover sunflower fields or old dove fields, those are going to provide a good grain the quail can eat throughout the winter. It's important that you have standing grain because the quail don't have very strong legs. And so when the snow comes in, any grain that's on the ground that's buried, the quail aren't going to be able to dig for that. They need something that's going to stand up through the snow, that's going to still be there on top of the snow that they can eat. That's another reason why native forbs and native broadleafs are great, is because they will withstand a snowstorm and give food for that bird to get after. If you don't have a neighbor or family farm or friend's farm to hunt on, there's lots of good public locations to hunt. So if you look at the MDC website, and there's a link there, and we'll try to get it into the chat as well, but you can look at what they call QRLs, or Quail Regional Landscapes. These used to be quail emphasis areas, which were a conservation department, public land that emphasized quail management. And then they also worked with landowners around the conservation area to build more quail management, more quail habitat to increase bird numbers. And so They're now called Quail Regional Landscapes. They're usually public land. Like I said, this had quail emphasis done on it. They usually have pretty good numbers, but they can be hunted heavy. So if you're planning on trying to hunt some of these, I recommend maybe going early in the season. Another place to look for places to hunt are MRAP properties, or the Missouri Outdoor Recreational Access Program. So this is where public landowners like you and I can take our land, private landowners, we can take our land and we can offer it to MDC as a access for people to come and hunt. So I can take my farm and say, hey, I'm willing to let it be open if people want to come hunt small game here. And then MDC will give them some money for opening their property, and it basically becomes like a conservation area that's owned by this individual. They can do habitat work and get bonuses for doing habitat work. And so we've had a lot of successful team hunts on MRAP properties. They're not quite as well known as like the QRLs or even other MDC conservation areas. And so it could be a good way to sneak out and get some hunting done. There's a link also there that you can look up MRAP properties, and you can also just search it on the MDC website. And even just looking at your local conservation area, looking for things like the standing grain, the native grass plantings, shrubby cover. It may not be a QRL conservation area, but it could still have good bird numbers. So something else when you're looking for birds, there it goes. You're going to want to look for bird signs. And so in this picture here, the white dots that you see, there's even a feather down here. So that's quail scat. And when quail roost for the night in the autumn time and fall, they all sit with their tails pointing in and they're in a circle and all their heads and eyes pointing out. And so they do this to help keep an eye out for predators. And that's one of their survival techniques. You've got all the eyes looking outward, looking for anything coming in, and then everything's pointed inward. So that's why you get a pile of scat like that. If you start seeing signs like that, that's a good sign that there's birds using the area. Another great way to work on determining where a covey is listening for the coveys in the morning. So unlike their traditional spring bobwhite whistle, quail coveys have a coolie whistle that they all start whistling right before sunrise. And so you can listen for this whistle and get an idea of where the quail coveys at. If there's a quail covey there, you can go out before you go hunting. You can go out the morning that you're going to go hunting and listen for that. You can also listen for rooster pheasants. They can be heard crowing on some mornings when you're out there listening for these quail coveys. So I'm going to switch screens real quick, so bear with me. Okay. So this is what a pheasant sounds like when it's crowing. Hit it one more time. Real throaty, raspy call. And then a quail, when it does a fall covey call. So that's all right, so that's the two calls that you can listen for while you're out there. Let me get my PowerPoint back up. Okay, so you'll see we did have a video on here from our website where you can listen to multiple coveys calling. It didn't come through real well on the Zoom, and that's why we went to All About Birds, but Zach said he's going to throw the links in the chat, and you can head over to our Facebook page and listen to a couple different coveys calling and see us do those whistle counts. Now, if you don't hear a covey calling the morning that you're out there hunting, it doesn't mean that the birds aren't there. When I ran into that covey last fall, I went out in the morning, got there. I'd say get there about a half hour before sunrise. That way you're there plenty of time to hear them call. And then So I got out there, I think actually 45 minutes before sunrise, waited all day or all morning until sunrise, heard one rooster pheasant, but didn't hear a covey, but then I still ran into a covey. So don't get discouraged if you don't hear a covey, but you've seen good bird sign, you can still definitely find some birds. So that's kind of it on scouting. Now we're going to go over some of the equipment that you need for the hunt. So the primary thing, and really the only thing that's non-negotiable, aside from your tags that you need for the hunt, is a shotgun. It doesn't really have to be any certain kind of shotgun. I would lean toward one that's not too heavy. It's quail and upland bird hunting is a lot of walking. It's a lot of moving. You're on your feet, especially if you got a couple hunts lined up or you're hunting all day. It's going to be an all-day adventure. So a lot of people, especially with quail, they like 20 gauge. 20 gauge will definitely put down a quail. It'll put down a pheasant. That's what I hunted with all growing up and through high school. Now both my shotguns are 12 gauges. Either one are fine. In the earlier days of quail hunting, a lot of people like the 16 gauge, and it's starting to come back into popularity. It's that good middle level gun. It's got a little bit more spread, a little bit more distance than that 20 gauge, but doesn't have the weight or the bulkiness of a 12 gauge. But anything from a 410 to 12 gauge, whatever shotgun you have, it's your grandpa's single shot, hey, that's great. Use it, nothing wrong with it at all. I'll recommend an open choke. That'll just increase your chances of hitting the quail. Something like a modified or I just blanked on the other one, but a modified open choke, that'll increase your spread on your shot and give you a better chance of getting on some quail. As far as size of shells, you can look at like a 7.5 or 8s for quail. I like a good 7.5. And then if you're hunting pheasants, get something like a 6. It still has quite a few pellets out there, but it's a little bit heavier shot. Pheasants are known for eating shot and keeping on going. I remember my second pheasant I ever shot. I got up, I hit it perfect broadside, saw the impact. The bird rolled in the air, and then it just set its wings, and I watched it disappear over a hill. And we never found it. So just know that like a little bit bigger shot for your pheasants. My grandpa's method, Dad told me, was always to put, if he knew he was hunting in pheasant and quail ground. I mean, if you're only hunting quail, then just go for 7.5s and 8s. But if you've got a chance at some pheasants in there too, Grandpa always would throw a 7.5 as his first shell in the chamber, and then that second shell that he was following up with was a 6. So if he got a pheasant up, he had a second heavier shell to help catch the bird. There's a lot of specialty shots out there. A lot of companies have specialty shot shells for quail. A couple are like Federal's Prairie Storm. It's kind of designed for pheasants, and it's designed to help bring pheasants down a little bit faster, high speed, low drag type shells that they're shooting here. And then the same with your Upland. Your Upland is Federal's Quail brand. So that's just a couple ideas, but if you just want to get some basic Federals or basic Winchester 7.5s, 6s, those will do you fine, no problem. So next thing that's really handy to have is a good vest or game coat or even a game bag. So you can see in the picture, Colby's got a game vest on. I've got a game coat. They have pockets to hold your shotgun shells, and they got a little pouch to hold your game. Makes it easier carrying birds around the field. I also have, if the weather's really warm and I'm hunting anything like doves or squirrels or quail, I also have a real basic, cheap, like 3 pocket belt that has 2 pockets for my shotgun shells, a little game pouch in the back, and just a nylon strap that buckles. I think it's like $5 or $10. So don't have to get super expensive. You can grab that and it works great. Something that's not really as necessary is like brush chaps or brush pants. So that's what Colby has on there. It's a little more beneficial if you know you don't have a dog and you're going to be busting through a lot of brambles and brush. Definitely recommend some brush chaps or just thicker pants. You can see I had jeans on there. They help. Still cut a few blackberry thorns. You're going to, but something like brush chaps or even some good Carhartt pants, something that's a little bit thicker is going to flake some of those off. That's really helpful. Definitely some good shoes or boots, something that I said you're going to be on your feet all day. If you're doing a full day hunt, or even if you aren't, you could be on your feet walking quite a bit. I mean, upland games usually a walking man's game, and so good broken boots so you don't get blisters and so you don't wear out your feet. And then last, some good bright orange hats in bright orange clothes. You can see we got orange panels on our coats here, on the vest. It's just going to help see each other when we're out in the field. So a lot of the fields have gone dormant. They're brown, they're dark. You wear dark clothes, you can blend in, but you can see in the picture, like all the orange in that photo is showing really well. Also note Ethan, he's the lead guy in that picture, if you can see him, but he didn't have a lot of quail gear, so he's just wearing some Carhartt pants. I think he's got a deer hunting vest on for his hunter's orange. It's not a requirement, but a good recommendation. And then he's got a backpack. So he just took out what he had and he's using it. So he's one of our biologists down in Southern Missouri, and this was on one of our team hunts. So definitely you don't need a lot of gear, just something to carry a few things around. So your basic regulations, quail and pheasant hunting dates are November 1, 2021 to January 15th, 2022. It has been that date range ever since I've been alive. Not saying it won't ever change, but it's pretty solid in those date ranges. And then your daily limit of quail is 8. Got your possession limit, 16. Daily pheasant daily limit is 2 males. Possession limit is 4 males. So that's a male, or what we call a rooster pheasant in that picture down there. And you can see it's got the yellow band around its neck, bright colored head. You can only shoot male pheasants. Quail, you can shoot male or female. So the male is the one with the white markings on his face, and the female is the one with the yellow markings on her face. When they get up, it's pretty well impossible to distinguish male or female quail. But with a pheasant, it's very obvious. I didn't have a picture of the female, but the females are very drab and tan colored. They don't have any of the reddish brown, any of the bright markings that the roosters do. So just know that if you're going out, make sure that you know you're shooting at a rooster if it's a pheasant when it gets up. And it helps if you're hunting with a group, call it out. If it's a hen, yell hen. If it's a rooster, yell rooster. That'll help out everybody so they know if it's a legal shot or not. You will need a small game permit to hunt quail and pheasants, but that's all you need. So some type of small game permit, whether it's the combo, small game hunt and fish, out of state, there's lots of different permits on there. You can check those out on the MDC website, as well as the rest of the regulations on there. So a couple bonus tips. Hey, good quail and pheasant habitat is good wildlife habitat. You're bound to see lots of wildlife when you're out quail and pheasant hunting. So this is a mixed bag that I got last year. There's that same bird, and then I traded out, that time I traded out my shotgun for 22, went after some squirrels. Bonus is that all you need is a small game permit for squirrel and rabbit too, and squirrel and rabbit season runs the full length of quail season. So you can, a shotgun with 7.5-inch shells work just as well on a squirrel and rabbit as it does on quail. You're definitely bound to find rabbits. They like that brushy escape cover that quail do. And you might have a pretty good chance of finding some squirrels on the edge of the timber, especially if there's a few oak trees there when you're hunting those quail and pheasants. Something else that's always fun to hunt if you come across them, and on a lot of our team hunts, we delve into the woodcocks quite a bit. Now, there are a couple considerations on that we'll get to, but dove and woodcocks, again, woodcocks are going to be on that woody edge. And doves, if there's still some hanging around come November, they're probably going to be in those food plots that you're hunting. So keep your eye open for those. Note, though, that dove season ends November 29th and woodcock season ends November 28th. Also, these are both migratory birds, so you will need a migratory bird permit if you plan on trying to harvest some of those when you come across them. And So bottom line, just know the regulations of where you're hunting. Some places permit small game hunting, but they don't permit migratory bird hunting. So just check that out before you go. But if they do, it's a great time. You can get a mixed bag, lots of delicious, awesome wild game while you're out hunting for one species. That's become a tradition of mine in November, is I just do a small game hunt. I load up a shotgun, load up a 22 in my truck, and then I take the shotgun out, do my bird hunting. When I'm done with that, I either take the shotgun to the woods, or sometimes I'll just switch to the 22 and start chasing after some squirrels and rabbits. So it makes for a long day, but a fun day being in the woods, seeing a lot of different habitat. Another key fact though, if you are hunting with somebody's dog, make sure you check with the dog owner before you harvest any other game. I've hunted with multiple different dog owners. They all kind of have different ideas. Some have told me, yeah, you can shoot a rabbit, just don't shoot it in front of the dog. Some don't care. The main reason being is they don't want that dog to see you shoot a rabbit, and then it thinks and starts getting in its mind that it's a rabbit hunting dog, and so it starts chasing every rabbit it sees. Trying to just keep that dog focused on what it's trained for, quail and pheasants, and watching over them. So that kind of draws the small game portion to an end. We'll hit briefly here on fall turkey hunting. I will throw out a caveat here. So I don't do a lot of fall turkey hunting. One of our biologists, Tyler Rhodes up here in northern Missouri, he's done quite a bit of fall turkey hunting. So he gave me some tips. One of my cousins likes the fall turkey hunt, says he likes it more than spring hunting. And so he gave me some tips as well. And so we'll kind of go over what they told me and your different options for turkey hunting. So first things is, it is not at all like spring turkey hunting. There's different rules. There's different things you can do, different things you can't do. And so there's a lot of changes from what you're used to if you're used to a spring turkey hunt. For one, there's usually not a lot of gobbling. They're more silent. The toms or the gobblers are forming these bachelor groups. And so they aren't fighting for territory, trying to find hens like they are in the springtime. You can harvest 2 turkeys in the same day. And I double checked on the MDC website and read that right. Definitely go and read it for yourself too, but that's different than spring turkey season. Spring turkey season, you can only harvest for the first week, you can only harvest 1 bird, and then you can only harvest 1 a day. So that's one difference. Another difference is you can shoot hens or toms or gobblers, whatever you want to call them. And some people may give you grief about that, but hey, if you're a new hunter and that's the only bird that you've got a chance at, it's no different in my eyes to harvest a hen than it is to harvest a doe in deer season. It's a legal method. You're allowed to do it. If that's what your first bird is going to be, go for it. That's a great opportunity. And so don't let anybody put you down on that. If it's a legal method, then go for it. So a couple methods and techniques. This is how I usually fall turkey hunt. Is I purchase my archery tags, and then I'm in the stand with my bow. And if a turkey comes along, I'm gonna try to go for the turkey. If a deer comes along, I'm gonna try to go for a deer. I have an archery tag for both. I can hunt both. To me, it's the best of both worlds. I'm deer hunting, turkey hunting at the same time. Maybe I'll throw a little mouth call in there, and if I see some turkeys, try to call them over. The flocks usually are going to be, turkey flocks are usually going to be in similar areas as deer. They're going to be hunting. They're going to be on food sources. They're going to be on game trails. And so that just gives, in my opinion, a double chance. But with a fall turkey tag, if you purchase a fall turkey tag, you can hunt using a shotgun. And so the most common method, and this is both what Tyler and my cousin said, is the bust and call method, is what I'm going to call it. So you locate a flock of turkeys, repattern a flock of turkeys, you know where they're going to be. Sneak in fairly close or try to get close to them. And then you get up and you run and scatter the turkeys. The goal is to scare them, scatter them in whatever direction, getting them going in a bunch of directions. Then you're going to pull back to a tree, to the woods, to wherever you're at, get a little bit of cover. You're going to sit down and you're going to start calling. They call it the kiki call. It's almost like a high-pitched, not quite a whistle, but like a high-pitched yelp, almost a whistle. And if you listen, you're bound to hear some. You can also look up videos to try to find. I found several videos of this kiki call, but the goal is you're going to start doing some clucks, doing some high pitched clucks and light clucks, and try to call the turkeys back to you. They're very social birds, especially in the fall time. So after they get broke up, they want to come back together. So you scatter them, you use that call, you bring them back into you, and basically try to reassemble that flock on your position so you can get your bird. From what I hear, everybody loves it. They say it's a fun way, very different than spring hunting where you're sitting and trying to work that tom in. And it's popular. I mean, all I had to do is look up the Cubby Call, and all sorts of articles about fall turkey hunting, doing this bust and call method came up. So if that's something you want to work on or go for, I encourage you to go for it. It's a great time anytime you can get out in the woods. So just some final thoughts. Hey, whatever you're hunting, get outside with friends and family. It's great to be out with friends. You're going to make memories. And it doesn't have to be perfect. I know I listed off some gear and some different things. The only thing you really need is shotgun and your tag to go hunting, and you can have a great time. Mistakes are going to happen. I've missed more birds than I've hit. I've probably messed up more turkey hunts than I've had successful, but that's the memories. That's part of it. That's all part of hunting. So I encourage you to go out there and just make the most of it, and especially with friends and family. It's always better when you're hunting with others. Make sure you know the rules. Don't just go off what I say. If you're going to hunt something, make sure you log on to the MDC website. You get one of the hunting pamphlets that are at your Walmarts or at your hunting stores. Even log on to the app. Get the regulations for what you're hunting. And then as a couple bonuses, hey, look for other ways to earn prizes. There's a big push right now to get new or lapsed hunters out. And so Alps Outdoors has a hunter mentor pledge where you can pledge, if you are a hunter, to take somebody out hunting, or if you know somebody who could take you hunting, you both can fill out this hunter mentor pledge, get a discount on Alps gears, and get entered for a drawing. There's also, coming October 1st, the Missouri PFQF MRAP Challenge, very similar to the Alps Challenge. But the main difference is you're going hunting on MRAP properties. So I talked about MRAP properties. You can find them on that link that was earlier. You can even Google MDC MRAP properties, and it takes you pretty well right to it. But if you hunt and fish on an MRAP property between October 1st to December 31st, you can enter on our Missouri PFQF website to win a prize. So your prize is, if you go by yourself, you can win a $200 gift card. If you go with a mentee, or if somebody is your mentor, you can both enter for a prize. So you can get double prizes. You can enter for the Alps Hunter Mentor Pledge and enter for our MRAP Challenge. The only thing is you just have to hunt on an MRAP property. Check out our website for more details on that. But there's lots of incentives to get outdoors, aside from just being outdoors and seeing the beauty of that. So I'll definitely be here for questions and continued conversation. Look forward to the engagement here after this.
Great, thank you, Josh. A lot of things to cover there. Lots of birds to hunt in the fall, as well as rabbit, squirrel, turkey, etc. So thank you.